Hello there, moin moin, ladies and gentlemen, Donspektor here, today with another IEM review, and finally, and I know I'm really late to the party, there's already the PR3, but today I'm tiny taking a look at the PR2, and yeah, we find out what this thing can, what it can't, cheapest planar on the market. I think the PR3 is a few bucks more expensive, but generally it's kind of the same ballpark, so let's directly get into it. As usual, packaging and accessories. Yeah, that's it. If you have seen the super cheap KZs or CCAs, it's exactly the same that you get here. You would know that these are more in the 50-ish buck realm instead of like 20-ish. So it's small. It comes with very thin cardboard, and then you move that out. You get the presentation here. So you remove the plastic, get the accessories. You get random KZ tips again, not the better KZ tips. You get a cable that, yeah, I will not bother with the cable in this review, honestly. This is the cheap KZ cables. Not a fan of these. They are not the absolute worst, but they are also not good. And other cheap IEMs like the SimGod EW100 or the MS1 Galaxy do definitely a better job there. So yeah, what should I say? Like, this is not great. I didn't like it, and I'm using another cheap cable as replacement for it, which is this one. So yeah, that's it in terms of packaging accessories. Although I have to say, you do get a pair of foam tips, which maybe is a hint on the signature of the IEM, a small spoiler, but we take a look at that later on. So we skip the cable today because it's really not worth it, it's really not great, and directly go to IEM Build. So this is the IEM, as you can see, and yeah, actually doesn't look bad from the outside. They are going for this semi-open back design in IEM, so I have never heard any IEM that actually would be semi-open, but this is how the design they want to go for here, and it actually looks pretty decent, I have to admit. This is a bit too reflective, so it collects fingerprints, but it generally feels like it's glued on well enough. And then at the side you can definitely see the seam around here, easily visible, also noticeable to the finger, but generally it doesn't feel too bad overall, and I think it's fine for the price. Also at the side here you see more semi-open, and you can also see the mesh actually is relatively like not thin, but the holes are pretty small, so you shouldn't have any problems with dirt getting in. And then you get a bit of a branding here at the top, and at the front you can actually see the driver through here. This is, I think, a 13.2 millimeter planar in here, and you get a pressure relief for here, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. My biggest gripe of this is not actually a three-part design. As you can see, this is two-part design. This is three-part. You have the faceplate, you have the middle part of the shell, and then you have the front part. And also here you can feel the seam. It's not great, and honestly it feels like it could be cheaper. But yeah, the front mesh here looks like it's the same as you got, for instance, with the DQ6, where the left side, I think, of my front mesh fell out shortly after the review, basically, and I'm not sure if this was just bad luck or if KZ doesn't glue them in, but don't know. But here it seems to be fine, and the time I've been using it, it just stayed in there. And as connector you get a QDC, also pretty much standard affair. Yeah, some people do like QDC because in theory it gives you the best robustness for 2-pin, but I'm fine with this. Don't hate it, I don't like it, it's just there, okay. So for this price, I think the build is decent. It doesn't feel quality inspiring, but it's fine, and we are anyway here for the sound, right? So it's okay. Then let's go ahead. Let's talk about comfort. And as you can already see here, this is a medium length nozzle. So yeah, it generally does fit well enough in most cases. I think though it could have been a bit better overall. I think the angle might be a bit too steep for the insertion because with longer tips I do have a bit of a problem in getting this comfortably to fit. But shorter tips definitely work decently, and as you can see here I got the Asla Max on here. This definitely works nicely, and I don't have any problems with the Max whatsoever. Again, let me well stress that the front edge here at this front where my two fingers collide here, this can be a bit of a bummer for people with deeper ears, because this is going to hit your pinna and will be uncomfortable. So again, a bit more smooth contouring would be good for the general audience. But if you use for yourself, if you have a deeper ear, use longer tips, you should be okay. It's also more on the light side, so you're generally fine in terms of comfort. I don't think it's as good as the MS1 Galaxy, for instance. That thing just fit like a glove. This is not as good. And the EW100 also is a bit more odd in terms of shaping. So I would put this between the below the MS1, but probably a bit above the EW100 in terms of comfort. And then let's talk about isolation. And I mean, again, technically semi-open back. But I mean, you've heard other semi-open IEMs, they're not really semi-open whatsoever. So it generally doesn't isolate doesn't isolate that bad, but also not well. I would put it below average, but if you expect like a semi-open back headphone that you can hear your surroundings like almost maybe like just a few decibels quieter, this is definitely isolating more. And you also don't get the benefit of the additional soundstage you would have at open or semi-open back headphones. It's an IEM in terms of soundstage, small spoiler here. And yeah, it does okay in terms of isolation, like not great. So for more busy synthesizer, definitely not good enough. But honestly, in the office, it's okay. I didn't have any complaints there. Just wouldn't wear it outside in most situations. Trim was also fine, like I wish just would have been a bit better there. And then drivability. Yeah, according to spec, this one has 15 ohms at 94 decibels. That is not too bad, but also not too good. The S12, for instance, which I will come back later on, is clocked at 16 ohms at 102 decibels, so quite a bit more efficient. And in my experience, yes, this does translate to drivability. The PR2 takes definitely a bit more juice to be driven sufficiently. And I had the feeling I honestly lose a bit of dynamic, and it comes off as a blunted on the Apple dongle. It's not bad, honestly, but it's not the best. And I think upping the power to something like the Hibi FC4 does definitely give a bit of an improvement there. And honestly, even my desktop setup, I had the feeling was still a tiny bit better than that. So I think it does scale a bit at least. And I think with something around the Hibi FC4, you should be getting most of it. So as I said, like usually with my rating, right? 90% also probably tiny, maybe a bit more you get on something more powerful like the FC4, or if you plan to go for a random dongle, I think it's only 70 to 75% of what you get. I really had the feeling here with a bit more power, it actually does scale a bit and give you a bit tighter bass, a bit more details, but yeah, that's it. And then let's talk about general sound characteristics. And I will absolutely compare this to the S12 in basically all of this review. Because if you see the graph now, damn, this is close. Like really, this is the small spoiler. I think I will call the review S12 for like a third of the price. Because that's kind of what you get here for like 40 to 50 bucks. It's similar to S12 in most regards. That means it's like a brighter V-shape. But yeah, that's what you get, and I try to be a bit quicker with this review, I think, because really the graph does exactly indicate how it sounds to my ear. So that means it's definitely more bright, it does easily extend past 10K, going, I think, really all the way up to 20, and yeah, you do get definitely an unnatural shimmer on top, but similar to Idioko, that also helps with detail retrieval, and it definitely feels like this is a very detailed IEM overall. Not natural sounding, mind you, but very detailed for the price, absolutely. And again, I have some tracks that I use usually for like reference. Multivitamin Juice Part 1 and 2 from Movane, really good. Voice in My Head from Cyberpunk soundtrack, also crystal clear, very detailed. Nier Automata soundtrack as well, very like generally clear and airy. So definitely nice there. Again, I'm not bothered by Upper-treble, like I know other people that are and that don't like the absolute artificial boosting of Upper-treble. I don't mind it, so yeah, just tell you if you know you mind it, this will probably not be for you. And then yeah, similar to most other planars, you do get a peak at like 9K. That gives you definitely a tiny bit of additional splash and sizzle. It actually is also 9K peak to my ear, so other people might assume this could be pushed down to like for you for 8K. but for me it was not pushed down to 8K, and yeah, the plateau at like 9K here, for me it's actually 9K. But again, depends on the insertion depth of you, and for your ear it might be pushed to 8K, and then will absolutely be sibilant, because look at the amount of energy past 10K, boah, and around like 8K. Like this is definitively more than what I would like to see on most other IEMs, but because it's kind of a similar amplitude than the already bright 3K, honestly this perfectly worked fine for me, and I don't have much complaints in the mid-treble. Because yeah, the trend is very similar to the S12, and yeah, generally like yeah, 5K, 5.5K is a bit shifted, bit upward, but I didn't mind it at all. And for me, this matched the S12 so closely. It's bright, but I like bright, and so it's exactly my cup of tea. But again, also the S12 is very bright, right? So it might not be for you. And it brings me to the mids, and yeah, just looking at the graph, you would expect that the mids here are a bit more clear, a bit better pronounced, because there's definitely less bass bleed here. Yeah, I'm not sure if this really translates to the audible performance, because while this having a decent amount of vocal clarity, it's not even close to something more, let's say, variations-ish, or something that also the audio goes for. It's a far cry of that. So while vocals are fine, they still come off as V-shaped, and yeah, that means they're not the greatest presence overall. It's fine, similar to the S12, like don't have much complaints, but they're also not the best. And again, planar definitely helps you here with the technicality, so they are definitely not lost in the mix. And yeah, lower mids definitely are pronounced here, so that means again, growls come off as a bit more, even for not as much as on the S12 generally. And yeah, then we can come to bass, and I think this is the biggest difference between the S12 and the PR2, because treble actually comes close to my ear. Yeah, just listening to this is lacking the punch, this is lacking the pizzazz, this is lacking the weight. The bass generally comes off as a bit kind of light in the mid-bass department, even though it's well pronounced there according to graph, it just doesn't sound like that to my ear. Might be because the planar is smaller here, I don't know, but I didn't like the bass that much. So yeah, my benchmark tracks here like Deus Ex, Persona 5, mid-bass presentation was adequate for the price, but for planar I think I would like to see a bit more. And by sub-bass, yeah, it does, when it's called, it does give you some rumble, and the Brigador soundtrack still worked pretty well. I still think it lacks in the lowermost registers as well. So that means Interstellar's Mountains, the PR2 manages 2 minutes 14. This is like a bass drop that starts at like, I want to say, maybe 70, 80 hertz, and then drops all the way down to 20 hertz. And you can really hear when an IEM has texture, or how well it preserves sub-bass. And this does not do a too great job here. 2 minutes 14 is average, and it's similar to the S12, unfortunately, because S12 was also not great. So yeah, it's fine overall for bass. Not good, but fine. Dynamic IEMs definitely do better at this price point, easy. Like Cadenza absolutely outdoes this, like no question whatsoever. And then Soundstage, layering and imaging. And yeah, I don't find the Soundstage, even though it's so bright, I don't find it worth mentioning. Like it's not claustrophobic either, but it is kind of like serviceable is I think the word I noted in my written text here, because it's mostly 3 layers, and positional audio is fine, like you can game with this, no issue, but it just doesn't feel like you were listening to an IEM this bright. Somehow it doesn't come off as that. And then separation, dynamics, and coherence. And separation, definitely you get planar separation with this one. Might be a bit lesser than other planars, but it's absolutely fine. And in Insatiable High from Takanaka, for instance, clean instrument lines, no blur, no mush, like what you get with the Khan, that's a bit more expensive. That was like a blur and mushy. This one does not do that. Again, it's planar, so that's what I expect. And it does deliver. And then dynamics, I mean, it's a planar, right? It's not known to be dynamic, and this one doesn't strike me as that either. Macro dynamics, I feel are right for the price, but absolutely fall behind the Cadenza. And micro dynamics, I think it might be doing a bit better, but it really is one of those IEMs that pushes details in your ear. And it's definitely too loud in the microdynamics here. Like everything that should be more quiet is pushed forward, and it comes off as, don't want to say fatiguing, but if you are sensitive to that, it will be fatiguing to you. And yeah, then last but not least, coherence and timbre. Yeah, I mean, generally I think the coherence here is single driver IEM, it's fine. It comes off as a bit, yeah, more pushed towards the treble side here, and it's a bit plugged overall. But at this price point, it's not a big deal. Like, I think the cadenzas in reference does sound more metallic than this one. But yeah, this one is definitely more bright overall, and you might not like that. Unfortunately, now we come to the elephant in the room. Yeah, I mean, so far it sounds like I could give it a recommendation, but if you have been following the KZ PR2 disaster, KZ decided to change the tuning after the release quite a bit somehow, and I'm not sure what IEM you will be getting if you would order a PR2. I have not heard similar things about the PR3 so far, but the PR2 is definitely changed quite a bit after release. And the original tuning that was intended for this did look a bit better. It looked a bit like more subdued in the treble. So yeah, take that as you want, but that brings me to a verdict. In theory, I think this could be recommended, because it is so close to the S12, and I like the S12 sound-wise, minus the bass, that I could see people liking this, because it's also in good bright tuning. But because I don't know what IEM you will be getting in the end, and because of the bad cable that you get with it, and the kind of okayish comfort, I won't go recommend it. Like, I could see people liking it, but then again, you need to find the right tuning, and I'm not sure if KZ will actually stay consistent with the tuning of it. And again, I will maybe get the silver PR3, but if they continue the same trend as they did with PR2, I'm not sure if PR3 can be recommended either, because you need to have a track record of consistent releases, consistent performance of one IEM over its life cycle, and this one just doesn't have that. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have feedback, if you have criticisms or anything else, please leave a comment. And with this, Donspektor out.